What's going on, guys? So today's video hopefully will be pretty interesting. We are continuing along our topic of RV quality and how RVs are specifically designed to be used, because I know that that is a question people ask all the time, and this is one that deserves an answer. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so whenever you buy an RV, you have an expectation of using it to build memories, to get out there with your family, to get out there closer to the things that you want to spend time around, like lakes and oceans and mountains and rivers and things like that. You want to get out to the scenic areas that make this country beautiful. And the question a lot of people typically ask is, if I buy an RV, how often should I use it? Well, that's a question that I think most people discuss when they're going through that RV shopping process, but they may not know the answer from an industry perspective. That's going to be the big gap. Let's talk about that. So, whenever you are shopping for an RV, whether it's a fifth wheel or whether it's a travel trailer, I'm not really going to talk about motorized coaches here because I don't quite know the numbers on those. I don't talk as much about those. But let's specifically talk about fifth wheels and travel trailers. A fifth wheel and a travel trailer. Now, people that shop for RVs, most of the time, I'm assuming, have sat down with their family, with their spouse, and discussed how they're going to use it, what the whole purpose of the RV is going to be. Are they going to go out and about? Are they going to explore the country? Are they going to stay relatively close to home? Are they going to put it on a piece of property? Are they going to keep it next to their house? What is the use case of that RV going to be? How often do they plan on using it? And can they cost justify getting an RV or just staying in a hotel or just renting a bed and breakfast or something like that? Why spend the money on an RV if you don't have an understanding of how you actually plan on using that RV? I guess that's the better way of kind of going into this conversation. I think for the most part, people who think about buying an RV really stretch what their usage goal might be. They know that they don't have that much time to go out in an RV, but they're going to justify it by saying, shoot, if we just take it out once each month, we'll be doing really good. We'll be making our money back. We don't have to spend money on hotel rooms. We can get right out there next to the lake. We can have the RV lifestyle. We can have, s'mores cooking. We can barbecue and do all sorts of things closer to the beautiful scenery that we want to be near. Well, that's the perspective, again, I think a lot of folks think about when they get into RVing. But again, what does the manufacturing side, the industry side, think about RVing? And this is based off of their understanding of the consumer. So, if the consumer has this dream of using it every single month, multiple times throughout the year, staying, a week, a month, every single month, and just spending that time in the RV, well, the manufacturer would then go, okay, well, if that's the reality of how they're using it, let's build it to be able to withstand that type of usage. Now, this is the part that's going to shock a lot of folks. And this is a part that is also kind of interesting at the same time, because I don't think people think about this. What do you think the average number of times an RV owner uses their RV per year? Now, this is maybe not you. If you're a full-timer, if you go out every single weekend, if you live in your RV full-time, if you travel the country and you have 20, 30, 40, 50,000 plus miles on your RV, probably most of them put on each year, then this may not be you. But if we're talking about 95% of RV owners, 95% of RV owners, how often and how many times do you think they use their RV in a year? If you guessed 10, you're way too high. If you guessed 8, you're still too high. Most RV owners with towable units use their RV between 4 and 6 times a year. And they stay in it less than 30 nights in a year. So if you factor that out, you could say, okay, so if it's 4 trips, we're pretty much camping in it at about a week each time we take it out. If it's 6 trips, then we're camping in it less than that. But most RVers take their RV out less than 6 times or less per month, and they camp less than 30 days. I think the average, or nights, I think the average is closer to like 14 to 20 nights per year in their RV. Now, that still may be absolutely enough for you to justify getting an RV. You may just love that time that you spend. We sure do. We are weekend warriors. We are above that typical average, right? We used to use this one a lot more, but now that we have it out here at the property, we don't take this one out as much because this almost acts as kind of like a guest quarters for us. When we have guests that come over, they really enjoy it. When we have family and friends that stay over, this is like the place that they want to be. They absolutely love that kind of camping experience, being out here and enjoying being in an RV, because oftentimes they've never stayed in an RV before, and their perception of an RV is more like this, where it's kind of a basic RV. But then when they hop into the Brookstone, they're blown away by it. So the Brookstone doesn't get a ton of usage anymore. We still take it out maybe, I'm going to say probably maybe 4 times a year. That's probably the best way of positioning it. We are right in that average range of what most campers might use their RV. So yeah, I'm going to say we probably still use this one about 4 times a year. We don't probably stay in it any longer than 4 nights per trip. So we're not huge RVers in the sense of staying in this one like some folks who watch the channel, some folks who are full-timers, folks who just travel the entire country, because we're not retired. And YouTube is a thing that I do, of course, but I also have a job. And we just don't have the time. We have so much going on that we can't take the trips that we would love to take all over the country and just spend time living in this because we have obligations and things that prevent us from doing that. That's where the Surveyor really comes in handy. So we've taken the Surveyor out over 24 times since we've had it. And we've picked this up, I think we got this around September or October of last year. So within the, let's just say 6 to 7 months that we've had this unit, we've taken it out over 24 times. That is how we enjoy using this one. And we don't go out nearly as far. We typically go to local parks, places that are maybe 2.5 hours to 3 hours away. We've used this one quite a bit more than we've used the Brookstone, again, because of our family situation, the way we live right now, the obligations and things that we have. But we are absolutely on the higher end of using this RV than a lot of folks might typically be with theirs, because again, think about it, the average is 4 to 6 trips per year. So a lot of people want to know how much is too much when it comes to using an RV. Now, the more you step up to full-time rated RVs that are designed, or at least the claim is that they're designed to be used full-time. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're designed to be towed full-time. That typically means that they're designed in a residential way, possibly with insulation features, possibly with a few additional features that make it more comfortable to camp in if you were going to stay in it full-time. Basically, if you were going to park this at an RV resort and you were going to leave it there for months at a time, and you were going to live out of that RV, kind of like what we're doing right here, right? This is not a full-time rated RV, but it could be used like that, right? We could open up all the slides and just keep it readily available, and we could live in it because we keep the ACs turned on, so they kick on to keep the inside dehumidified, the refrigerator's on. We have pretty much everything in this thing running all the time, except for TVs, microwaves, and stuff like that. But that said, a lot of folks want to know how much is too much. And if you buy an RV, does full-time rated mean that I can tow it down the road all the time? Can I rack up 50, 60, 70, 80,000 miles in just a couple of years? Basically what you would put on your tow vehicle, right? The miles that you would expect your F-350, Ram 3500, GM 3500 HD to be able to soak up with relatively few problems. And the reality behind that is I don't think there's any set odometer that the manufacturers really think RVs are designed to withstand. I don't think, and this is just my opinion, that the RV manufacturers think enough about how often you may be towing this down long roadways all over the country and moving it around. I believe most of the time RV manufacturers believe that most RV owners, again, 95% of them, are going to rarely be using their RV. So from a suspension perspective, from a tire perspective, from an axle perspective, it's basically saying we're building this because we know they're not going to be using it too much. And the facts just back that up. That's just understanding how often people typically camp, 4 to 6 times per year, less than 30 nights in a year. But then when you look at manufacturers who build units that are designed to go beyond that, well beyond that, when you look at some of these ultra high-end brands like Northwood Manufacturing, when you look at, different brands that specifically are designed for folks who are going to be traveling thousands and thousands of miles, or manufacturers who claim that their RVs are capable of traveling thousands and thousands of miles, they should be built better. They should be built to be able to withstand that type of scenario, but there also needs to be clarification from the RV industry on what their expectation of you as an RV owner is. If you are looking at, let's just say Brookstone, since I have this one in front of me, and we're talking about Coachmen, and ask that I would have of them is, well, first of all, they've never claimed it is a full-time rated RV. They say it's 4 seasons, but they don't claim it's a full-time rated RV. The frame, the chassis, all of that stuff is very similar to that of most fifth wheels with this Z-frame style or a drop frame underneath it. So you would look at it and you would say, well, aren't most RVs built on very similar chassis? Sure, they spec the chassis out for the floor plan and everything else, and the manufacturer of the RV has a huge part of making sure that they send the right specifications to Lippert for the frame to be built, so you don't have problems. But even then, you can have problems, right? You can have problems with the frame. You can have frame failure issues. You can have welds that break. You can have all sorts of issues that occur. I would argue to say that a frame down here in South Texas on the salty coast probably isn't going to survive as long as a frame that might be in the middle of the desert in Nevada. Different climates, different temperatures, different salt content in the air. So I understand all that. But at the same time, I think manufacturers need to step up and start giving buyers, consumers, expectations of how many miles you should put on one of these, how many miles you shouldn't exceed, and how often those miles can possibly impact the performance of the RV. Because if the industry has this perception that RVs are only going to be used a few times throughout the year for just a certain number of nights, well, that might be what they're building to. That might be specifically how they build their RVs to meet that criteria, when in fact, we know that every RVer uses their camper differently. And yes, even though the vast majority of them, that 95%, don't use them very much, the 5% that use them a lot expect more out of their RV. They expect a higher quality RV in terms of how it's going to hold up when it's being towed down the road. We have never been full-timers. I've never claimed to be. I'm always 100% clear that we do not camp as much as a lot of people who probably watch my channel, and as a lot of people who have channels, and you watch their journey, you watch their travel, you watch their trips, you watch the trials and tribulations that they go through whenever they get to certain areas and they have to encounter certain obstacles. Well, we don't typically go through that. And because we don't, I can't specifically say that I will ever have the problems some of those folks may run into. And I do believe that it is the manufacturer's responsibility to at least let you have a good understanding of what their RVs are capable of, how long they should be towed, when you should basically say, you know what, we've gone too far, we've towed this thing 50 times this year, we've moved it all over the country, we've towed it thousands and thousands of miles. At what point are we going to shake this thing to death so the superstructure starts to fail? And when I say superstructure, I mean the whole thing, the body, the frame, everything. Because it will eventually happen. It's wood, it's screws, it's aluminum, it's on top of a steel structure, but at the same time, go into it with that expectation that this is not an F-150. This is not a Ram, power wagon that they specifically say this is how you can use it, this is where you can use it, and these are the applications that you can use it under, and this is how long it will probably last you. Most vehicles have like 150, 250,000 mile life expectancy, and you know that kind of going into it. I think it's time the RV manufacturers give us a life expectancy of an RV and how often you should or shouldn't use it in a given year. I think it's just expected, and it's something we should all know. Anyways, guys, I would love to know your comments, your feedbacks on this topic. What do you guys think? What do you think about RV manufacturers and possibly them finally moving to a model that actually lets you, the consumer, know how long these things should last realistically and what they consider to be normal and what they consider to be abnormal? Because when you shouldn't find out is when you break down. You shouldn't break down and then go, oh wow, the manufacturer is now telling me that I shouldn't have towed this as much. I shouldn't have pulled it over these certain scenarios. I shouldn't have done these things to it. Because right now, that's the area that's just not clear. Anyways, guys, I would love for you to leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.